has to be noted that there are two colorants in the positive list at the back of the plastics regulation, just titanium dioxide and carbon black. The others, as I say, you'll have to look at national legislation to deal with those. Next slide, please. These guidelines also clarify the status of biocides in food contact materials and articles into various categories. Processed biocides, so things which are added to the actual production process, the polymerization medium, to prevent the growth of bacteria there. They're regarded as polymer production aids, so do not necessarily have to be listed in the union list, but if not, it should be listed in national legislation. Surface biocides added to plastics to make sure that bacteria cannot grow on their surface in use. They're regarded naturally as plastics additives because they have a technical effect in the finished article. So they need to be listed on the union list. And preservatives, food preservatives, which naturally enough are treated as food additives. Those first two classes of biocides, the processed biocides and the surface biocides, also need to be notified under the biocides regulation, number 528 of 2012. Union guidelines also contain some useful discussion on what dual-use additives are. These are additives that can be used both as food additives and additives in plastics. And they give, and there is there a list of dual-use additives, which, although it claims to be non-exclusive, I may have gaps as far as I can see. It's pretty much exclusive. They all seem to be there to me. That's useful. And there is also a slight clarification on the position of nanomaterials, in so much as it defines them as described in Commission Recommendation 696 of 2011, which you can find by Googling it, and a statement that once it's decided how to implement this definition, given in Commission Recommendation 696 into General Food Law, the plastics regulation will actually be amended accordingly. Next slide, please. I mentioned the draft guidelines on interpretation of the testing rules, which have been around for ages, but haven't actually been published. I won't discuss them in detail because to do so would be a presentation in its own right. With appendices, they run some 200 pages. But what they do usefully include is some clarification on choice of simulants and exposure conditions, and particularly the use of worst-case simulants to cut down on the amount of migration testing that needs to be done. Explanations on the use of reduction factors. Reduction factors, one thing that people certainly find confusing about the plastics regulation. Discussion on when it is appropriate to use screening and modelling approaches rather than formal migration testing, and a really useful definition of some generally accepted functional barriers. It would be really useful actually if that got published somewhere, because that is good. Will we see it? Well, 4 years ago, the European Commission expected this document to be published before the end of 2014. 2 years ago, we expected it to be published in the autumn of 2016, as they say. And it now appears that the Legal Services Unit of the European Commission have raised objections to publication. So no progress has been made, and I believe this guideline to be missing in action, or perhaps more accurately, missing due to inaction. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, what comes next for the plastics regulation? Well, it is certain that we'll continue to get the housekeeping of the approved list of substances. Once EFSA gives a positive evaluation of a substance submitted in a technical dossier, it will be included on the union list in future amendments to the plastics regulation. It seems probable that we're going going to get stricter rules for the data needed in technical dossiers for food contact substances that can be used in foods for babies and infants, and perhaps also for children. It's not certain, but possible. And if you bear this list in mind when I talk about the novel approach for printed food contact materials later, you'll actually see if the Commission adopts this novel approach, it will actually address all these things by default for printed food contact materials. If it were to come back and actually use that novel approach for plastics, once again, it would automatically address all these things which are perceived as problems currently. So action to improve the quality of declarations of compliance